You were there. My mom screamed when I asked about my grandparents' funeral. My family stayed silent. Until I showed proof that changed everything. The truth left them shocked. I'm a woman in my 30s, and I've unintentionally caused a major fallout in my family. Now none of them are speaking to me. For context, I grew up in a small town with a population of about 500. When I went to college in a nearby city, with around 15,000 people, I fell in love with it and decided to stay after graduation. I built a life there, got married, and have been happily living in the city for over a decade. Despite this, I frequently visit my hometown, check in with my family almost daily via calls and texts, and always believed we had a good relationship. My family is relatively small, just my brother, mom, stepdad, dad, stepmom, and an aunt and uncle, my mom's unmarried, child-free siblings. My maternal grandparents moved to our town when I was in high school and lived just down the street from us. Overall, our family dynamic has been relatively drama-free, aside from my parents' divorce when I was a kid. Our blended family has always gotten along well, celebrating holidays together and remaining very close-knit. Ever since I moved away, my family has persistently asked when I'll be coming back. I've always laughed it off, but I know they're serious. My hometown has very little, basic groceries require a 30-minute drive, work commutes take 60 to 90 minutes one way, and the main road floods every Easter. While I still have fondness for the town, my life in the city offers much more: parks, stores, community events, and even a library. Despite my family's constant urging, I have no intention of moving back and have instead encouraged them to consider relocating closer to me, especially since medical facilities here are much more accessible. Now, onto the real issue. My grandparents passed away during the COVID era. They had been in declining health for some time, so their passing wasn't unexpected. Fortunately, they didn't contract the virus, but the pandemic made visiting difficult, so we relied on FaceTime. They both passed peacefully in their sleep, just a few months apart. Their remains were cremated and, for safekeeping, stored under the kitchen sink while waiting for the pandemic to subside. That was back in 2021. Recently, I discovered that my family held a funeral for them and scattered their ashes in my uncle's maple grove over the summer, without telling me. I had visited multiple times before and after the ceremony, yet no one ever mentioned it. I only found out because my great-uncle, who lives in California, recently posted on Facebook that he was entering hospice. In his post, he expressed gratitude that his health had allowed him to attend his little sister's, my grandmother's, final resting ceremony. Confused, I called my mom, who casually said, "Yeah, the funeral we had in July, remember?" The strange thing is, I had visited my family for the 4th of July, but the funeral took place on the 8th, just a few days later. They had been planning it for months, long enough to arrange travel for my elderly, frail great-uncle from across the country, yet no one mentioned it to me. Apparently, it was a frequent topic of discussion. Now, my entire family insists I was at the funeral. They swear I was there. But I can prove I wasn't. Google location history shows exactly where I was. My husband is just as baffled because, according to them, he was there too, except he had to work every weekend in June and July. His time clock records confirm it. The reality is, my family simply forgot about me. And yet, instead of acknowledging the mistake, they're angry at me, accusing me of lying and stirring up drama over nothing. No amount of proof convinces them otherwise. They're all standing firm, refusing to respond to my messages unless I admit I was wrong. They genuinely think I've lost my mind. Either there's a doppelganger of me attending family events, or they just don't want to face the fact that they messed up. But I refuse to back down. With Thanksgiving approaching, my family has been posting vague statuses on Facebook about forgetful kids and mental health. It's completely bizarre. I feel like I'm in some alternate reality. My mom's best friend even reached out, urging me to just apologize and stop causing my mom unnecessary stress. When I sarcastically asked if anyone had checked their homes for carbon monoxide leaks, she hung up on me. For the record, we checked our own CO2 detectors, and everything's working fine. I've contacted a few people back home to check in on my family, and they all insist everything seems normal. I even reached out to the local volunteer fire department to see if they could check for gas leaks, though I'm not sure if they followed through. At this point, I don't know what else to do. I've presented undeniable proof that I wasn't at the funeral, but my family just assumes I fabricated it because I'm good with technology. My husband thinks we need some space, so we've decided to stay home for the holidays this year. Edit: I'm not sure about update rules, but I'll post any updates on my profile if anyone is interested. Update: I'm not sure how to properly post updates, so I figured I'd just share them on my profile. A few people have messaged me privately, and this seems like the easiest way to keep everyone informed. It's now November 27th, and Thanksgiving has come and gone. My husband and I decided to stay home this year. We got a small turkey and had our own quiet Thanksgiving. It was actually really nice. We ate around noon, watched a movie, and later sat outside with a bottle of wine, watching the sun set behind the trees and neighboring houses. Normally, we take the day before Thanksgiving off, drive to my parents' house, stay overnight, and help with the cooking. So it wasn't until Wednesday night that my mom finally broke the silence. She called and asked when we were arriving. I told her we were staying home this year but wished them all a happy Thanksgiving and asked her to pass along my love to the rest of the family. There was a long pause before she quietly mumbled something, maybe an okay, and then hung up. It didn't feel like an angry hang-up, just an ending. On Thanksgiving, I sent a Happy Thanksgiving gift to our family group chat. A few people responded with similar greetings, but that was it. No further conversation. No one has said anything else. And, strangely, there haven't been any Facebook posts about it either. Update. I think I mentioned in a comment that my dad and I used to talk on the phone every Sunday morning. We're both early risers, so we'd chat over coffee while watching the sunrise. Since everything happened, we haven't really spoken, and it's been hard. I'm so used to those conversations, you know? Well, this morning, I was outside in my usual spot, watching the sun rise and freezing my butt off. When my phone rang, it was my dad. I'm not sure how to describe the emotions I felt in that moment. It was a mix of panic, hope, anxiety, happiness, and dread. But I answered because I needed to know why he was calling. The conversation was awkward. He didn't bring up the situation directly, but he danced around it in the most ungraceful way possible, like a cow on stilts. For example, when he asked how I was doing, I answered honestly, not good. That brought things to a standstill because we both knew why. So instead, we talked about the weather, the winter birds at our feeders, and the Christmas decorations around town. Just small talk. Eventually, he asked if we were coming home for Christmas. When I told him we weren't, he sounded disappointed. Then he asked if he and my stepmom could visit us instead. I told him it wasn't a good idea this year, that my husband and I were planning to have a quiet holiday together. I let him know he should be getting some gifts at his P.O. box soon and asked him to put them under the family tree for everyone. He said he'd send ours in the mail as well. And that was it. No major drama. No weird Facebook posts, just the usual holiday excitement, countdowns, Santa photos, silly gift ideas, and company Christmas party pictures. On a personal note, my husband and I are doing well. Our health is good, our spirits are high, and our relationship is as strong as ever. We both got Christmas bonuses, not huge ones, but we're grateful. We also tried advent calendars for the first time this year. I got him a Lego one, and he got me a hot chocolate one. We've decided to do them again next year, maybe make it a tradition. Wishing everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Update. I've received an overwhelming number of messages and DMs suggesting I look into inheritance matters. I really appreciate the concern. It's touching that so many strangers online are looking out for me. That said, I'm confident inheritance isn't the issue here. Honestly, I'd almost prefer if it were, because at least then this whole situation would make some logical sense. Money has a way of bringing out the worst in people. But no one in my family is particularly wealthy. When my grandparents passed, their small estate was used to cover end-of-life expenses, and the remaining assets were evenly divided among immediate family members, excluding my dad and the step-parents. I don't remember the exact amount I received, but it was around $5,000. My brother even gave me his share so I could finish paying off my college debt while the interest freeze was still in effect. As for my great-uncle in California, he has kids, grandkids, and even great-grandkids of his own. He wasn't wealthy either. I think one of his children does well in finance, but beyond that, I doubt he left us anything. We barely knew him. My mom, aunt, and uncle only met him a handful of times, and my brother and I even less than that. He was close with my grandma, but I don't think he ever really liked my grandpa. Update. I hope everyone had a great Christmas. I've received so much support from these posts, and I truly appreciate it. Writing these updates has been surprisingly therapeutic. Yesterday was Sunday, but I didn't answer when my dad called. I just wasn't in the mood for an empty conversation, so I let it go to voicemail. He tried reaching out a few more times throughout the day, but I didn't pick up. Meanwhile, our best friend invited us over last minute for Christmas Day lunch, so my husband and I spent all of Christmas Eve baking cookies, peanut brittle, and homemade hard candies for his kids. My mom also tried calling, but I ignored her too. Lunch was amazing. Our friends' kids are an absolute blast. Their grandparents had gifted them some really cool tech, VR headsets and Steam decks. Since our friend and his wife aren't very tech-savvy, my husband and I helped set everything up while he played host to his family. Turns out, the grandparents didn't realize a Steam Deck requires a Steam account, so we helped the kids create their own, added them to our friends lists, and even gifted them a few games. We also got them some VR games, and they were up and running with Beat Saber in no time. As for my family? My brother texted me asking if we could talk tomorrow. I think my ignoring both my mom and dad has finally stirred up some tension. Honestly, if they're upset, well, they deserve it. Update. Talked to my brother this morning. First off, my brother apologized for everything. For now, we're on good terms. A little background, he and I are only 2 years apart, and since there weren't many other kids around when we were growing up, we spent a lot of time together. We share a lot of the same interests and passions. Throughout this whole ordeal, he's been pretty quiet but still part of the group, if you know what I mean. The idea of losing him was one of the hardest parts because he's always been there for me. Before I met my husband, he was my rock. That said, he's definitely a mama's boy. If mom wanted something, he made sure she got it. But for now, I'm just happy to have him back. Now, straight from the source. Apparently, my mom had a cancer scare late last year, something no one bothered to tell me about, of course. My dad also had a heart stint put in back in January, which I didn't know about. This whole brush with mortality seems to have pushed mom into overdrive, determined to bring me back home. Since I wasn't responding to her usual passive-aggressive hints, she and my stepmom decided to escalate things. My great-uncle had been in poor health and had been asking about funeral arrangements for his sister, my grandma, for a while. So, the moms took it upon themselves to plan it, while also using the occasion as a way to take a massive jab at me. They kept the whole thing quiet between just the two of them, so no one in the family even knew about the funeral until about 2 weeks before. They claimed they had invited my husband and me, and since no one thought twice about it, no one bothered to follow up with me directly. The plan was simple: scatter the ashes, say a few words, and maybe grab lunch in town. A small, low-key gathering. The moms didn't even tell the family that our great-uncle was coming for it. Because of that, no one thought the funeral was anything major. It was barely a footnote in conversation. Then comes July 4th. My husband and I were out celebrating, and since everyone else was caught up in their own festivities, no one mentioned the funeral. Anytime the topic of "this weekend" came up, one of the moms would quickly steer the conversation elsewhere. So we went home, completely unaware. Then July 8th rolls around. My great-uncle arrives in town, bringing along some of his kids, grandkids, and even great-grandkids. No one, except the moms, knew he was coming. Everyone gathers at the Maple Grove, where the moms have set up a full-blown event, complete with tons of food. It's basically a party. Because there were so many unfamiliar faces in the mix, no one on my side of the family even noticed I wasn't there. They scattered the ashes, said their words, ate, and had a good time. It wasn't until my great-uncle and his family left that anyone realized I had never been there at all. And this is where the crazy went up a notch. My brother says the moms were happy no one noticed I wasn't there. And that this was proof to everyone that I needed to move back because I was so easily forgotten about. Because none of them thought to reach out, right? They basically did a ton of guilt-tripping manipulation bullshit, and it made everyone upset at me for not showing up. Somehow it was my fault for being excluded. So suddenly everyone was on their side with sticking it to me. But then a few months went by, and tempers cooled, and then I guess the horror of it set in. Followed by the shame, but by then they were in too deep. How do you undo something like this? And since I hadn't brought it up, I guess they figured they would all just stay quiet about it and hope I never asked about a funeral. That's when I found out about everything through my great-uncle's Facebook post. I immediately called my mom, who panicked and came up with the dumbest possible response, insisting that I had been there. Didn't I remember? I later caught up with a few old high school friends and casually mentioned the situation. Word spread around town, and soon, the local gossip mill, complete with church ladies, got involved. Suddenly, there was a debate. Was I really at my grandparents' funeral, or did my own family fail to invite me? Was I stirring up drama, or had they actually erased me from such an important event? According to my brother, once the rumor started, the family just went along with my mom's version of events. Of course they didn't forget me. Of course I was there. Of course they're good people. And just like that, the lie snowballed. They assumed I'd eventually cave. I usually avoid confrontation, so no one expected me to stand my ground. But then I skipped Thanksgiving. And now Christmas. And I still haven't backed down. I think it's finally sinking in that I can cut them off entirely, and now my parents are panicking. My brother has tried convincing them to just apologize and explain, but their stubbornness won't let them. They'd rather sweep it under the rug, but I'm not letting that happen. My brother is really frustrated with everything that's gone down. He sees now just how messed up it all is, and he wants no part of it. But since he still lives with my mom, he can't fully escape it. So, he asked if he could come stay with us for a while. I talked to my husband, and we both agreed, our spare room is his for as long as he needs it. Since he works remotely, moving won't be an issue. I think he's heading over today or tomorrow, but I fully expect things to explode once he does. On a lighter note, my husband is thrilled that my brother and I made up. They used to game together all the time, but that stopped because of the situation. Right now, he's downstairs turning his man cave into a welcome setup for my brother. Seeing him so excited makes me happy too. Update. Hope everyone is having a wonderful holiday season. May the new year bring joy and happiness to you all. Not much of an update, but things have been calm here. My brother has settled in well and has been a great housemate. Our place isn't huge, but the basement and outdoor patio make it feel spacious enough with an extra person around. He's quiet, clean, and no trouble at all. He picked up some new clothes from Walmart, got a haircut, and trimmed his beard, looking much more put together now. He's quite the heartbreaker when he cleans up. He's also befriended the very nosy but kind retired couple next door and is adjusting to city life pretty well. As for our family, they've mostly behaved, though we're still not answering calls. There have been a few texts here and there, mainly from Mom asking when my brother is coming back. He has no plans to leave anytime soon. She told me I can't keep him, and I reminded her that he's a grown man who makes his own decisions. Apparently, she tried ordering him to return home, which led to him blocking her entirely. He's also asked, somewhat hesitantly, if he could stay long-term, or at least longer than a typical guest. We're totally fine with it. He has a well-paying job and could afford his own place, but he's never lived alone before, and I think the idea makes him anxious. If he decides to stay, he'll start paying rent, and we'll likely rearrange things so that he has the basement as his own space. For now, we're just taking things one day at a time. Update. My brother has officially decided to stay with us long-term. He and my husband spent all of Sunday organizing the basement, rearranging things so he now has his own space to settle in comfortably. He's pretty handy and has already started fixing little things around the house. Our windows and doors have never opened, closed, or locked more smoothly. He even repaired a closet we had basically abandoned because the door was impossible to open. Unfortunately, he also had to replace all the locks and get us new keys. Why? Because while my husband and I were out on Saturday, the moms showed up. They had been calling and texting all week, but we weren't responding, so they apparently decided to show up unannounced and force a conversation. Since they had emergency keys to our place, they let themselves in. My brother told them to leave, but they refused, and things escalated into an argument. Our, very nosy but well-meaning, neighbors noticed the commotion and ended up calling the police. We got a call from the neighbor's wife and rushed home, only to find cops in our yard, neighbors pretending to vacuum their trees, and our ever-watchful porch guardians standing in front of my brother like a live-action Gandalf, blocking the moms with their best "you shall not pass" stance. Talking to the police was a blur. I was shaking and barely remember what I said, just that I word vomited everything. Thankfully, our local officers are great. One of them had me sit in his cruiser with the heat on, gave me a bottle of water, and calmly talked things through. They asked if we wanted to trespass the moms, but I wasn't sure if that would result in criminal charges, so I just asked them to remove them from the property. The officers did so without any trouble. I think the moms were genuinely stunned that we were treating this so seriously. They didn't argue or yell, just left quietly. My dad assured me he'd make sure his wife stayed away from us, or else, and said he would also have a serious conversation with my mom. We spoke on Sunday morning, and he sounded completely exhausted by the whole situation. My husband, half joking, told him he could move in with us too. My dad declined. At this point, I'm not sure what's next, but we're installing Ring cameras as soon as they arrive. Everyone except my dad is blocked. Hopefully, they take the hint and leave us alone. Update. I've been getting a lot of DMs asking for updates, but honestly, there's not much to report. The moms have been on their best behavior, and everything is quiet, no drama to speak of. It felt a little weird ignoring messages or just copy-pasting "no updates" to everyone, so I figured I'd share what we've been up to instead, in case anyone cares. Dad recently got a new bird/squirrel feeder from Amazon. It looks like a tiny picnic table meant for a doll, but it has a mesh top for birdseed, though I think it was originally designed for chickens. It's ridiculously cute. Unfortunately for him, it's also become an all-you-can-eat buffet for a local Cooper's hawk, much to his horror. Now he's in full defense mode, setting up trellises around it to keep the hawk at bay. He'll have to wait until the weather warms up before planting anything to grow on them. We installed some Ring cameras, along with a motion-activated camera that doubles as a light bulb. It fits right into the light fixture outside the front door. The video quality isn't amazing, but it's a neat little addition. It also happens to have a great view of the bird feeders, so I've been watching the birds, and the occasional hawk, during my lunch breaks when I'm in the office. Meanwhile, my husband and brother are locked in a very serious rivalry. They started a co-op farm in Stardew Valley a few days ago, and now they're both trying to romance Leah. My husband, ever the strategist, secretly admitted to me that he's also romancing Sebastian just in case things don't work out with Leah. I have no idea why he's keeping this a secret, but he's feeling very smug about it. Update. My dad came to visit over the weekend, and we had a great time. The weather was perfect for grilling and enjoying a few beers. It was really nice to see him again. He looked healthy and seemed to be in good spirits. Here's the latest from back home. It seems my stepmom has finally realized she messed up. I credit this shift in attitude to my dad sitting her down and making things crystal clear. Either she leaves his kids alone, or she'll be getting divorce papers. That shut her up real quick. They had a prenup when they got married, and while I don't know all the details, I doubt it would end well for her. She hasn't worked in years, so she might be eligible for alimony, but honestly, I have no clue about the legal side of things. Dad doesn't seem worried about it, so I'm not going to stress over it either. Meanwhile, my stepdad was furious that the police got involved during the last mom visit, even though no one was arrested or charged with anything. He went into full, "the kids are out of control and need to be put in their place" mode, but when my dad pointed out that the kids in question are all in their mid-30s, it seemed to deflate his anger a bit. Apparently, even my mom looked a little caught off guard by that realization. It honestly makes me wonder if a big part of this whole situation is my mom still thinking of us as children she can control. Regardless, both moms have been leaving us alone. I expected my mom to keep pushing, but I think the police showing up spooked her enough to back off. Someone suggested involving their pastor, which I passed along to my dad. Turns out, my dad actually followed through and had a conversation with him. The pastor is a younger guy, fairly new to their church, and has a good sense of humor. He joked that his first month on the job, he had to do 3 funerals in a row, so his congregation seemed dying to get away from him. He agreed to sit down with the family next month and help mediate a true, come-to-Jesus moment in hopes that we can actually spend Easter together as a family. The pastor knew there were some family issues but wasn't sure about the details and didn't want to pry since he's still settling in. He also agreed to lead a small service at my uncle's Maple Grove later in the summer, since it turns into a muddy mess in the spring. My dad says my aunt and uncle are over all the drama and just want to move forward, so I fully expect hugs and apologies when we see them next. Stardew Valley update. After a long and hard-fought battle, my brother emerged victorious in the Grand War for Leah's heart. My husband's secret romance with Sebastian was finally exposed, and let me tell you, it was a betrayal of epic proportions. Drama aside, their farm is absolutely adorable, and I love that they're having so much fun with the game. Update. Happy April Fool's Day. Hope you all double-check your caramel apples, just in case someone swapped one out for an onion. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Easter weekend. I'm thrilled to share what might just be the final update on this whole situation, maybe even a resolution. The entire family, aunt, uncle, both moms, both dads, my brother, my husband, and me, met at my dad's house for a long overdue discussion, with the pastor there to help mediate. As my dad had predicted, my aunt and uncle greeted us with hugs and heartfelt apologies, which was really nice. My uncle, who usually helps with the church's Easter egg hunts, even brought Easter baskets for us, just in case we weren't planning to stay for the weekend. I don't know why, but seeing that little basket of candy hit me harder than I expected. It felt really meaningful, and I got a bit teary over it. The pastor opened with a prayer and spoke about forgiveness before asking each of us to share how we were feeling and what we hoped to get out of the conversation. No interruptions were allowed, so everyone had a chance to speak, which was refreshing. The general consensus was that most people just wanted things to go back to normal. The only exceptions were my mom and stepdad, who both said they wanted all of us kids to move back home. The pastor gently pressed them on why they wanted that, and they didn't really have a solid answer beyond, because family. So, he asked if we were thriving where we lived. We said yes. He asked if we were happy. Again, yes. Then he asked my mom and stepdad if they truly wanted us to sacrifice our happiness just to make them happy. And that's when my mom broke down and admitted she didn't. We all had a good cry. From there, we discussed the funeral, the lies leading up to it, and the fallout afterward. The pastor encouraged everyone to express how it made them feel and reflect on what they wished they had done differently. It was emotional, but in a good way. Everyone owned up to their mistakes, apologized, and acknowledged that they had handled things terribly. We talked for a long time, and the pastor did an amazing job guiding the conversation. By the end, we had reached a real sense of closure. Emotions are still a little raw, but we ended up staying for Easter weekend and actually had a nice time together. We're going to take things slow, but I truly believe we're on the path to healing. As for my brother, he's still staying with us, and my mom has finally agreed to stop guilt-tripping him about coming back home. He's considering getting a small apartment in our area, but we're not rushing him. He knows he's welcome to stay as long as he wants. I think he's starting to consider dating more seriously. He's had a few girlfriends before but nothing too serious, but he's a little shy about bringing anyone home. Lately, he's been going to free classes and book clubs at the local library, where he's apparently become a favorite among the older ladies. They keep trying to set him up with girls their age who they know, and while he's gone on a few coffee or lunch dates, I think he's too flustered by the attention to dive fully into dating just yet. But he's happy, and that's all that really matters to me. At this point, I'm not sure if there will be any more updates. Everything seems to be as resolved as it's going to get. I just want to say thank you to everyone for your advice, support, and for giving me a place to vent when I needed it. Be kind to yourselves and to each other. Update. Things are going well, and we're taking small steps with the moms. We've been texting and talking on the phone more, which has been nice and civil. Dad had an accidental shopping spree at a craft fair and ended up buying a bunch of handmade bird feeders, thanks to a little too much fun at the beer tent. When I asked how many he bought, he just laughed like a madman, so I guess I'll find out soon. Stepmom insists he has to give some to me, so I'm expecting a delivery or a surprise visit from Dad any day now. On another note, my brother is officially in a relationship. We've met his girlfriend a few times, and she's an absolute sweetheart. She's around our age and has a young son, about 5 or 6. The kid's father isn't in the picture, from what I understand. Fun fact, she's the granddaughter of one of my brother's book club friends, so the matchmaking skills of those little old ladies really paid off. The relationship is still new, but I'm rooting for them. No big updates on Stardew Valley since work has been hectic, and I haven't had time for games. My brother has been too busy with his new relationship, so my husband finally started Baldur's Gate 3. He fell for Gale's magic trick, so now they're apparently a thing. I fully expect him to be lost in the game for the foreseeable future. Update. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. It's been a while, so I wanted to share some happy updates. My brother officially moved out. He's only about 5 minutes away, so it's not far, but he's living on his own now. He's still with the same amazing girl, and she fits into the family perfectly. She's studying to become a nurse, and I have no doubt she's going to crush it. Hubby and I get to babysit her son regularly, and he's a riot. At first, he was super polite and a little shy, but then my husband wore his SCP hoodie one day, and it turns out the kid is a huge SCP fan. That was all it took for him to open up to us. If my brother and his girlfriend are still going strong by August, which we're really hoping for, there's talk of the little guy taking the school bus to our place after school. There's a bus stop at the end of our street, so it'd be easy for him to hang out with us until his mom finishes work. Might have to figure out this new math thing, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. As for Mom, she's calmed down a lot and seems to have accepted how things are now. Dad even said she's turning back into the woman he once married, which is bittersweet but mostly good. She's even taken up cross-stitching again, something my brother and I had no idea she used to love. Apparently, she gave it up when we were born because she was afraid we'd get into the needles and hurt ourselves. Stepdad says she's been much more relaxed lately, which makes me happy. She's also been respecting our boundaries, only visiting when invited, and our relationship has improved so much. Dad and stepmom are doing great too. Stepmom and I actually bonded a lot in January when she had hip surgery. Since Dad's house has way too many stairs, she stayed with us for her recovery. The surgery was scheduled at a hospital near us, and after she was discharged, she stayed at our place, especially since a massive ice storm hit around that time. I've always spent time with her, but never this much, and it really let me see a different side of her. By the time Dad came to take her home, I was actually sad to see her go. I also have some news that might make you all happy. We finally held a memorial for my grandparents. I hadn't realized how much I needed that closure until it happened. It felt like a heavy weight was lifted off me, and I could finally breathe again. The service was beautiful, and some of the lovely church ladies even made finger foods for us. We spent the afternoon at the church, eating and sharing stories about Grandma and Grandpa. It was exactly what my heart needed. Our next family gathering is set for Easter, and for the first time in a long while, I'm actually looking forward to it. It really feels like I have my family back. Please be kind to one another and take care of yourselves. Thank you for letting me vent into the void.